Welcome to Wisdom for the Wilderness, a podcast of Overland Church, where we, the pastors of Overland Church, talk about all different kinds of topics from theology to current events. And today we answer a listener's question. So you'll remember you can send in your questions to wisdom@overlandchurch.org. And one listener did that, actually sent a whole list that we're working through a little bit. But here is the one we're gonna cover today. So, is skipping church from time to time okay to enjoy hobbies? And here's the examples. They may ring true with you. First on the list, hunting, vacation, sports. So
All
there
right.
we go. That's the question for today.
Hunting, vacation, sports.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I may feel targeted here a little bit because I recently missed 3 weeks of church in a row, but that question came in beforehand, so
Yeah.
I know it's not targeting.
But you were on a mission trip.
I was
doing church business at the Southern Baptist Convention.
All three were work.
Yeah.
All three were work.
Yeah.
And man, joyful,
Yeah.
great, fantastic work.
But none of them were hunting.
But none of them were hunting. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. All right. So I think this is this is a great question, and one that I want us to answer carefully. Maybe we should even go a little broader in the question
Right.
as we think biblically. Let's think through work.
Yeah.
And what does it mean if you work on Sunday? And thinking, not just sports or attending a sporting event, but travel ball.
Yep.
And what that may mean. You have hobbies. A lot of races are run on Sundays. I love it when we have people who run like half marathons and show up to church on
That's right.
Sunday.
Yeah.
It's always impressive to
Yes.
me. Major kudos who run those early Sunday morning races and still come to church.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we've had anyone finish a marathon and come to church yet.
Yeah.
Just halves.
I don't know if they'd have enough time
it would have to
finish and get
well,
there.
some people would.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
If they're from Ethiopia or Kenya, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So, Josh, how do we think through this biblically?
Well, I think first we need to establish the foundational importance to the Christian life of gathering together with the church.
Yes.
Before you can say, okay, when are reasons to not be there? Let's just make sure we understand that it is absolutely foundational. The church is an ecclesia. It is an assembly, which requires assembly to be a church.
Right.
And so, we could go down the road of, is online church a church? And I think biblically that wouldn't be a church.
Right. That's right.
Especially if you're talking about, there are churches out there right now that are only online.
Right.
And I don't think that fits the biblical definition of what a church is. You have to assemble, and I think because we're flesh and blood, that means assembling in person. And very clearly in Hebrews, it says not to neglect that assembling together,
right?
Because it's necessary for our spiritual growth. And if you think of the context of Hebrews, why is that command in that book? It's because of the persecution that they were experiencing, that they were tempted not to assemble together. Because if you assemble together, you put a bullseye on yourself, and the authorities are going to find you. They're going to persecute you. They're going to throw you in prison. And so it's interesting that the main temptation in the New Testament, that main command to not neglect the assembling together, comes in the context of persecution, whereas our temptation and the way we often will use that verse is the temptation of play, and it's the exact opposite. So, it ought to bring us a little bit of conviction.
Yeah, it should.
If in the New Testament believers are tempted to neglect assembling together because they could be imprisoned and they could be killed.
Yeah.
And we are tempted to neglect it because we want to go do something that we deem is more fun or more important, or how are you going to justify that in your mind? That ought to cause you a little bit of tension, a little bit of you ought to feel that
You ought
a
to
little
feel,
bit.
yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I do think you just mentioned online for a second, and I want to jump onto this real quick before we move on. There are churches, say in China, that are like Zoom churches because they can't gather.
Right.
And again, you brought up persecution and should they gather or whatnot. And I think there would be some leadway when it comes to special circumstances of gathering or small groups that are you're on Zoom and you're talking versus, and I don't think that's best at all. Don't get me wrong.
No, and I don't think they would say it's best.
Right. Versus though, when we think of online church, people who just watch online and participate.
Yeah.
I know in there's online pastors and that kind of thing at churches. I don't think it's what's best. It's what the Bible would have. I'm not for that. We're not, we've streamed every service we've ever had pretty much.
Yeah.
I can think of one or two maybe that the internet was out or something, but we've streamed services. We have done that so that when our people are sick or they're traveling or whatever, are shut in, our shut-ins that physically can't come to church can still listen to the sermon. But it's not, we've not put forward the money or the effort to think, let's grow this huge online audience. Rather, we do know people will have to miss church.
Yeah.
Let's have a way. And by the way, every time I miss, I try to watch live. If I can't watch live, I listen or watch it.
Yeah.
And catch up. And I don't do that just to check on to see how the guys did. I don't want to miss anything. I
thought it was to babysit us while you're gone.
No, that's not it. Not it at all. I want to be ministered to as well.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, when you do have to miss church, tune in online, catch the sermon.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump back into into it. So this idea of why we assemble the ecclesia and what we benefit from it.
Yeah.
I would throw in the same thing of like, you go to a concert versus just watch the concert. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Right?
It isn't.
Why do people pay so much money to go to sporting events versus watching it at home? And hey, let's be honest. There's some things that are better about watching sporting events at home, right?
Yeah.
You can do it in your pajamas, right?
You can
food's cheaper.
Chase Bartlett, you can pay $1,000 for a Taylor Swift ticket, or you can watch it for like $9.99 a month on Disney Plus. I mean, why would you do the different?
Yeah. Oh man. So good night. I didn't know you just threw him under the bus for me.
I mean, everybody knows Bartlett's a Swiftie, right?
I think they do. So we definitely know just intuitively that being together is in person. Person is better.
Right. That's right.
I think you have to can ask the question here: can you be a Christian and not go to church? And I've heard what's the analogy? That's like saying you're married without ever seeing your spouse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the point in that? What's the fun in
right.
that? Like, you get married to live life together.
Yeah.
I think this also brings up a question of church membership. Do you just attend a church, or do you belong, or in church
you have
membership?
Responsibilities to the body,
right,
that require being present there.
Right.
Yeah.
And our series, we're getting ready to restart this series, Marks of a Healthy Church. But last year, Brandon, I believe it was, preached a message on church membership and why membership matters.
Yeah.
And it does matter. It's not just that you would go, that you would belong together.
Yeah, and if we go back to our Ephesians series, when we talked about singing, you're not just singing to God, which you can do on your own, right? You can sing to the Lord all by yourself, silently in a tree stand while you're hunting deer, right?
Yeah.
But we are commanded to sing to one another, and you got to be together to be able to sing to one another.
Colossians 3:16 says, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom." And then it says, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thanksgiving in your heart towards God.
Yeah.
I was just teaching someone this week that, worship is vertical. It is between you and God, but it's also horizontal.
Yeah.
and we encourage and edify one another in that as well.
Right.
And so it it builds you up. So that's one of the benefits of going to church. Jesus, it was part of Jesus's practice. We see the examples in Scripture, but it says in Luke 4:16, it was his custom. He went to the synagogue on Sabbath day. He went. We get to the book of Acts,
Yep.
Acts 2:42. The very early church, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, the fellowship, the breaking of bread and prayers. They were devoted to being there.
Yeah.
We again, you just keep going through the Bible, and what do you see that Christians gathered on the first day? You open up church history. Christians gathered on the first day. And so fast forward to this question. This question, most of the world, this question doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right? Can I miss church to go do my hobby? Like,
Yeah.
what's your hobby?
Yeah. In Malawi, though, we struggle with people missing church during planting season and harvest season for work.
Which I think brings up a good question.
Yeah.
What can you miss for work? What if your job is on Sunday?
Yeah. Yeah, and there, I think there are some people who are working like a factory schedule. They have absolutely no control over their schedule. I was talking to a EMT in our church, and they bid on their schedule every so often, and he lost the bid, and he got to work on Sundays. And we need EMTs working on Sundays. We need police officers working on Sundays, and so it depends on the job. But if you can at all have any sort of control over your schedule, then you want to avoid it. And even that EMT, he said, I bid for a different schedule. I just lost the bid. He didn't want to work on Sundays, but somebody has to. So, as far as it is within your control, within your job, avoid working on Sunday.
Yeah. When I worked in a factory, anything over an 8-hour shift was time and a half. Anything over 40 was time and a half, and Sundays were double time.
Yeah.
And there were a few times that I got offered to work on Sunday, double time, and I always said no. No, I'm not going to do that. It's the Lord's day. I'm not going to work 7 days straight. You guys know, you can go back to our Sabbath episode.
Right.
I'm not a Sabbatarian, but I think you need a break.
Yeah.
And that money, to me, working 7 days, that's not healthy.
Right.
So I always said no. So I think as best you can.
Yeah. And there's you bring that up, the money issue. I mean, it is a matter of trusting the Lord, isn't it?
That's why that's why you take the day. It's not why, but it's part of it.
That's right.
Part of it is saying, I trust the Lord is going to provide.
Right.
That is part of why in the Old Testament, you had the actual Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
In the New Testament, it's why we practice the Lord's Day. You are trusting that the Lord will provide.
Yeah.
So there, that kind of answers working on Sunday. I would say if you're in a job, that has you working on Sunday, man, they're try the best you can to move into a job that doesn't.
Right.
And work your way up and try to work out of that. And there's churches that cater to Saturday night service, and convictionally, I don't love that model for a lot of reasons. A lot of churches, a lot of these fast growing mega churches with space problems are adding Thursday night service, and they're doing that. A lot of it has to do with travel ball.
Yeah.
And travel on the weekend. So Thursday night service, I find that interesting. Our conviction, and I'm not saying that I would never pastor at a church that had one of those services. I'm just saying, like, the simple conviction. What's healthy for I think most churches is Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday, we're going to give Sunday to the Lord.
Yep.
All right, so let's jump into the question. Of should you miss for your hobby?
Yeah.
And if so, how much and how often? I mean, don't you have to ask the question with your church, like to the person listening right now, what do you want your church attendance to be for the year? Right? I would say most people listening to this podcast, you're not Christers, right? You're not Christmas and Easter people.
Right.
So how many times a year do you think you want to be at church? What do you think yourself is acceptable? Answer that question.
Yeah.
45? 52?
Yeah.
Every one of them? Is it 30?
Yeah. And at what point are you saying something is more important than meeting with God's people?
Yeah.
At what point are you saying my priorities are more important than God's priorities? And there is a level of subjectivity to that. But I'm afraid we will excuse ourselves too quickly.
Yeah. I would say so. I would say when you ask the question, how many is okay? And then you look at how much you're at church, you might be shocked. You might go, oh, wait a second. I actually miss way more than
you realize.
And so, the person asking this question, they're not asking the question. Like there are a lot of people that like you wake up on Sunday morning and you don't feel like going to church or whatever, so you don't go.
Yeah.
That's not the question he's asking.
Right.
This person, they're like, no, they're going to church.
Yeah.
I've heard it said over and over and over, Sunday morning church is a Saturday night decision. And I'm going, no, it's not. It's not a Saturday night decision. Like there's not a Saturday night that goes by that I have to think, am I going to church tomorrow?
Yeah.
No, it's just a decision you make. I'm a Christian. I'm going to church.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're not on Saturday night going, am I going to church tomorrow?
Yeah.
My kids don't ever ask, are we going to church tomorrow? They just know it's Sunday. We're going to church tomorrow.
I get that, but the advice too is like you're putting yourself in the frame of mind that you're going to be ready on Sunday morning.
Yeah. And I don't,
so that's true too.
And I think Adrian Rogers might have been who said that, and I don't disagree with it, but I agree with like every Saturday night you have to plan to get ready to go on Sunday.
But it's not. It doesn't mean you have to decide, am I going or not?
Right.
I am going.
You wouldn't say work,
but I'm going to be prepared.
Yeah, most people aren't going. Well, work on Monday is a Sunday night decision.
Yeah.
It's a Monday night decision. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You made the decision that you work there. You're making the decision that you're going, right?
Yeah.
So just make the decision in your heart. Like, I'm a Christian. I go to church.
Right.
So when you're weighing the tension of, do we not go to church? Do we miss church for something? Those are real things. He brought up hunting. Hunting is, hunting in Colorado especially. It's a complicated thing that has seasons. A lot of them are short seasons.
Yeah.
A lot of the rifle hunts that happen in the fall, they might start on Saturday and end on Thursday. Some of them, some of the shorter, later hunts. Some of them are long. Some of them are 9 days or whatever. And so a lot of those hunts require travel to other parts of the state to draw the tag or whatever. I missed church when I had my moose tag this past year. Once in a lifetime moose tag. I had to make the decision, do I go? This is a once in a lifetime tag. Do I do it or do I not do it? And I decided, and I'm going to miss church on a Sunday. I always, I rarely miss church in September. I hunt in September, but I rarely miss church in September. But I decided, hey, I'm going to do it. I had to make that decision. The whole family was with me. I think generally speaking, though, like you should have the pattern of I'm going to church.
Right.
And there's some complications in it. I don't want to be legalistic about it and say, no, you can't ever miss church for something. Sure, you can miss church for things. There's reasons.
Yeah. But I think what you're pointing out is it's when you do, it's a very intentional decision. And I think for a lot of people, it's not intentional. It's just that, I feel like doing X today. the weather's so nice.
Yeah, the ski slopes are gonna be great today. Let's go.
Yeah,
Or
and it's not okay. This day, I'm taking this time and I'm doing this. It is just kind of like just floating around with whatever's
right,
up,
right,
and there's a difference in that. And as pastors, maybe it's a little bit easier for us to think about because when we miss, that's equivalent to our vacation, right?
right.
So our biggest work day is
Sunday.
Sunday. And so, I'm gonna miss church one Sunday in July. I'm actually preaching at another church the Sunday that I'm gonna be gone. But I mean, me not being at Overland, that's a vacation day for me. But it wouldn't necessarily be that different for, I think, a regular church member. You're gonna be there no matter what, unless there is this specific few times a year that you're going to be traveling and doing something else that's part of your if you're traveling out of state or you're something like that, then that's an intentional decision that you're
Right.
making.
And you would weigh it just like I think if you're weighing it just like you weigh your vacation days for work,
Yeah.
then go for it. Like I'm telling you, like, do I think it's wrong if you're like, hey, I'm going to go on a hunting trip and it's on the other side of the state and the season starts on Saturday? I could wait and go Monday and hunt
Yeah.
Monday to Thursday. No, I go for it.
Yeah.
Watch the service, but go for it, right? Like listen
Yeah.
in, catch up, but just don't make it a habit of skipping church to not meet with believers. I think I would maybe segue here into travel sports.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of parents in the U.S. who make this decision of, hey, my kid's going to play travel sports, and then we just don't see them in church.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's tons of research and tons of data on this. That's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good for your family. It's not good for the kid.
Right.
It's probably going to burn out the kid. We know all this stuff. I mean, I don't want to get into specialization in sports and how we just are seeing that a lot of it's a big scam.
Yeah.
But you will get to a spot. My family is often at a spot where I have a very talented athlete in my family, John Owen. And he is a very good athlete, actually. But no, we get pressure for all the time for James, where it said like, hey, he could play on this travel team, or would he want to play a travel basketball, or would he want to? And the answer is no. And he played in he played competitive travel 7v7 football, to which we told the coach, hey, he's tournaments that are on Saturday, he can play. Tournaments on Sunday, he's available after in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And he's not available on Sunday morning.
Yep.
And the coach said, okay.
Yeah.
And he's starting to get to the age where like there's camp invites and that kind of stuff, and having to weigh those things. And the reality is, I want my son in church. It's where he needs to be.
Yeah.
Summer camp's coming for my son, and I have a choice. Can I send my kid to a sports summer camp, or can I send him to church summer camp? And again, I want Christ to be first.
Yeah.
In his life. So
you're communicating with every one of those decisions what is most significant. And then on the other end, I mean, all of these things are a business. They are. Like travel sports teams, camps, all of these things are a business, and they are catering to demand. And, we ought to really think, like, if enough Christian parents stood up and said, no, we're not going to participate, then how big of a demand shift would that create in the environment?
So let me speak. That just brings up our students in Wednesday night.
Yeah.
This James's same team. Most of the time I've coached James, right? Yeah. He's now this competitive. He's like beyond my coaching. I've just said to the coaches, he's not going to be there on Wednesday night.
Yeah. And
the coach had practice on Wednesday night, and after about 3 practices on Wednesday night, guess what happened?
They changed the practice.
They changed the practice to Thursday. And they changed the night of practice because I said, hey, he can't be there. And I think in that, I think a few other kids made the decision, like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want my kid to miss youth group on Wednesday night. And
Yeah.
that's in this secular culture.
Right.
Imagine if people in the South did it.
Yeah.
And so I had years and years of student ministry, and I would just tell you, most of those kids, of all those kids, none of them are playing in professional sports. I only had a few get any resemblance of a scholarship.
Yeah.
And thousands and thousands and thousands invested in hotel rooms and flights and travel. It's probably, and most of those kids aren't walking with the Lord.
Yeah.
Right. Versus most of the kids that were in our student ministry who were there Sunday morning, Sunday night, and part of a community group and went to church camp. Most of them are.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing matters.
Yeah. Just put that money in a education savings for your kids.
Yeah, 529 account. You'll
be
better
a lot
off.
farther ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, be a lot better off. Bring rec sports back. That's what I say.
Yeah.
All right. So given a precise answer to the question, what's okay? Intentional time away.
Yeah.
Where you need to be away is okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Answering the question, not forsaking your responsibilities at church when you're leading a team, when you are going, making sure that it's covered.
Yeah.
Not forsaking gathering, even if you're going on Sunday, making sure you've watched the sermon, you're showing up to your community group. I think that matters.
Yeah.
And here, just let me like say the benefits of it. Like, the data shows, the research shows that people who attend church very regularly and are involved in community at church are happier people.
Yeah.
They're less subject to depression, anxiety, substance abuse, suicide. Like, go down the list. All the data, all the sociology and psychology says being involved in the local church is good for you.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Amen. So any words of wisdom as we close out, or is that your words of wisdom?
No, I would give this word of wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's not just attend church, right?
Yeah.
Not just attend, be a member, be involved.
That's right.
Show up on Sunday morning. Be a part of what makes the church the church. And I think a lot of those people who are just gone 6 months of the year, you're missing out on discipleship, and you're missing out on your impact on others as well.
Yeah. I would just say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. I mean, it's not about going to church. At the end of the day, it's about loving the Lord, but the Lord commands us to go to church. I think that's how we express our love for him, how we experience our love for one another, and there's no substitute for God's design. And we need one another to fully obey that command, the greatest commandment, to love the Lord your God. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. And once again, this was a listener question. So if you have a question that you'd love for us to answer, email it to wisdom@overlandchurch.org, and we could have a future episode with your question. Like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you next time. God bless.